And I'm pulling for sensitive for you. I have a name tag. So
Thank you.
thank you. In that proximity
I went to school there.
to good team.
So I look at plans all day, so
So
it helps, yeah.
and change
I guess that's true.
up when you do the presentation and just show the
You
presentation.
can't, I don't know. In fact, I usually use big screens.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
my laptop.
this is like my backup. Yeah, it's just big enough to be backed up. It's too small.
I think we're ready to go. We good, Susan? All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Helotes' Planning and Zoning Commission's February meeting. It's February 1st, 2022. This is a regular meeting, and it is 7:02 PM. I'd like to ask for the commission secretary to call the roll, please.
Greg Michelle,
Here?
Jason Whitman,
Here.
Ron Haza, Alex Blue,
Here.
Mario Rios,
Here.
Ann Carway,
Here.
Jeff Wade.
Here.
Great, and we have from staff, we have Michael Gallardo and Susan Darst, as well as the city administrator, Marion Mendoza, and the mayor, Rich Whitehead, and Councilman Matt Merchant as well. Catch Eddie. Where am I looking? Councilwoman Salazar, sorry. Thank you all for being here. We will start tonight with citizens to be heard, and I have the forms here, and I'm going to call folks up. Just some ground rules, if you haven't done this before. We ask that when you come up to the mic that you give us, please state your name and your address. Please also forgive me if I mispronounce your name. You have 3 minutes to address the item for which you've signed up. It is an opportunity for you to talk to us, not to others in the audience, or to respond to something you may hear. Please just direct your comments this way. And it's an opportunity for us to hear from you, so it's really not a Q&A type of situation. We would like to hear your thoughts, your comments on the particular items for which you have requested to speak. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. And the first person here is Megan Lauder. Hello.
Hello. I'm Megan Lauder. I live on 14814 Antonio Drive here in Helotes, Texas. I've been here for a while. I really love Helotes. I just have a few questions today regarding the development of the QT gas station across the street from Bandera and 1604, that scenic loop section. And one of the questions I have is about this property is why would we choose this property? It's just going to be a new development on land that hasn't been developed on. We redid the shell. The redoing of the shell was great. That was already on older land, so that's already been established there. This land has a plethora of trees, heritage trees, which brings me to my concern regarding the ordinance 379, Chapter 94, Article 1 of the Heritage Tree Protection states how we have to protect a certain amount. What trees are we going to use to replace the trees that will have to be cut down for the sake of development? Will those trees be heritage trees, or will they be crepe myrtles, not a native species that isn't conducive to the runoff? Also is how are we going to mitigate the pollution from this runoff? of the gas station. It's a concrete area. QT is very much known for their large, monstrous concrete plots. When this being on the butt end of a 100-year floodplain, how are we going to manage those floodwaters and the runoff from there being a huge platform of concrete? Also, another question I have is going to be in regards to Ordinance 396, Article 3, Section 34 through 42, which is going to be the lighting ordinance on signs. So QT is also very much known for their huge signs. They are eyesores on the road. Helotes is very much known for their quaint, small town. I just don't want it to be like another mirror image of Leon Valley. So Helotes is really known for that small town section. The lighting, the height of the signs, and also that ordinance says that the lighting does have to be sheltered. A lot of our gas stations don't have that sheltered lighting, so we want it to be under a canopy. And yeah, my questions about the trees, the lighting, the runoff, so all of those things I would like to see addressed as a citizen, how we're going to make do with all of that, with those ordinances that are in place to protect us citizens and from all the flooding and pollution of that development. So I am opposed to the QT development. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next, looks like Vanessa, is it Olmo?
Yes.
Thank you. Michael, are you doing a clock? Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Olmo. I live at 9829 Cash Mountain Road in Helotes Creek Estates. I am going to kind of take a different turn on this. I am opposed to QT. I am not opposed to development in general, but QT just does not fit. And I'm going to take some questions out of an article that someone forwarded to me because it is very much in line with what I feel. And it asks questions. The first thing, or statements. The first thing is, change is inevitable, but the destruction of community character and identity is not. And I think that we all need to listen to that again and take it to heart, because we know change is inevitable, but we do not have to degrade our little city in order to keep progressing. Progress does not demand degrading. Communities can grow without destroying the places and things that we hold precious, including Scenic Loop Road. Scenic Loop Road, as it enters into, or leaves Helotes and enters into Gray Forest, I mean, it's a beautiful drive. And the way things are being zoned, we are becoming completely commercialized. We're going to lose all of our natural beauty. We're going to lose all of our darkness to light pollution. I've looked at their plans for QT. I've looked at their lights. I know that they're asking for variances to our ordinances. They're asking for lights that are 42,000 lumen. I don't know what 42,000 lumen is, but I looked it up because I have Google and looked up some reviews. The kinds of businesses that are using lights upwards of 40,000 lumens are car lots. The reviews that are online for lights that are 42,000 lumen are things like, it makes my car dealership looks like a UFO has landed. It makes my lot look like daylight. My security camera no longer has to go into night mode. What is that going to do to our little corner, our little foothill of our community? As I come down Scenic Loop Road from my house, I see the beautiful Old Town Helotes signs. Those are going to be drowned out by light pollution. The traffic in that area is going to become a nightmare. We have lots of bikers, cyclists, runners, walkers in that area. So in my mind, in order for this gas station to be built, it's not just about clearing out this beautiful piece of land. It's also probably widening Scenic Loop Road, ruining our sense of community. And again, progress does not have to degrade what we already have. There are other businesses that could flourish in that area. Honestly, I don't know what, but I do not feel wholeheartedly that a gas station is it. Thank you.
Thank you. Bart Hughes.
Good evening, how you doing? My name is Bart Hughes. I live at 16027 Revelo Drive in Los Reyes Canyon. Just to be real brief, I'd just like to speak in opposition to the QT gas station. I believe that it's a bad look for our city. I think it hurts our city's character, particularly in relation to the Old Town portion of Helotes just right across the street. So I speak in opposition to any variances or as designed for this gas station. Thank you.
Thank you. Shauna, is it missing?
Mishong.
Mishong, I'm sorry.
My name is Shauna Mishong. I live at 13907 Circle A Trail. I am not here for QT. I am here for my own business, The Eclective, at the Helotes Country Village Shopping Center. I just wanted to put a face behind the person and the business so that you knew who I was. I opened December 2nd, and I am really looking forward to having something to bring people in. A light, a beacon, a sign, so they know that I'm there. That space has been empty for so long, and I've done a lot to renovate it and make it a new business in this community and in this town. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I trust you'll stay around if we have questions for the item when it comes up. Great. Thank you. David Bowles.
Hello, I'm David Bowles. I live at 15336 Orange Tower. And I was walking my dog through Old Town Helotes this morning. She loves that. Crossing over the pedestrian bridge, which was a wonderful thing you all did for the downtown Helotes. And as I got to the end of the pedestrian bridge, I looked off to Scenic Loop, and I saw Scenic Loop, and I tried to picture a QT there, a Quick Trip. And one thing came to my mind, oxymoron. A controversial term appears in conjunction, like a jumbo shrimp. Quick Trip, Scenic Loop. Quick Trip, Scenic Loop. A quick trip down Scenic Loop is just that, an oxymoron. I obviously am opposed to the Quick Trip. A trip down Scenic Loop should be the opposite, a slow, enjoyable drive, a run or a bicycle ride, as many people love doing. An entrance there at Scenic Loop would be an entrance with a sign that says Quick Trip, Scenic Loop. It's oxymoron. I looked online for the city's master plan adopted in 2009. It said the city will protect the environment. In the future land use plan, which I'm sure you all are familiar with, it says public officials will consider the following factors: environmental concerns such as drainage, impact to the Edwards Aquifer, floodplain, slopes, riparian corridors, air quality, water quality, and stormwater discharge volumes. I had to look up what riparian corridors actually means. It's of or situating on the banks of a river, like Helotes Creek. One of the goals in the environmental protection element of the city's master plan states development within the 100-year floodplain should be limited to passive parks and open spaces. Passive parks and open spaces. Having a gas station with gasoline storage tanks so close to Helotes Creek is neither passive or open spaces, but frightening. I remember in 1998 when we had the 100-year flood come through, seeing water so close to the top of that bridge there at Bandera and Helotes Creek, it was scary to think that when that happens again with the 100-year floodplain, it could be a catastrophic thing, especially since QT gas stations would be only yards away from the riparian corridor of the floodplain, as seen on the maps defined by the city, the floodplain maps. Please remember the goals in the environmental protection element of the city's master plan. Development within the 100-year floodplain should be limited to passive parks and open spaces. I urge you to use the master plan in deciding whether Quick Trip should be there. Thank you for my opinion.
Thank you. Raleigh Wood.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Raleigh Wood. My wife and I have purchased a house at 9845 Tower View, and I just wanted to express my opposition to the Quick Trip project. I think it's an inappropriate development for the site. I don't think it's characteristic of the old town or the scenic loop that it's near. I mean, a lot of the concerns that have been brought up earlier with the dark sky issues with dark sky, noise, traffic, environmental concerns like drainage into the Helotes Creek and, placing in gasoline tanks, potential leakage there are all issues. And I'm not against development, just appropriate development. I just think it's too large. It's going to be too bright. And if you kind of contrast it, I noticed they were talking about getting a variance for the signage, and you just kind of contrast the signs that they're going to put there with the Flores Country Store sign that's just painted on every week. I mean, it doesn't fit. And I just wanted to express that to you all. Thank you all so much for hearing me.
Thank you. Thank you. Janine Primero.
Good evening.
Hello.
My name is Janine Pomomo, and I live at 9705 Tower View. And I have enjoyed living in the ETJ for over 24 years. I've always loved this area because it's quiet, it's quaint, it's pristine. I was very surprised and very disappointed when I heard that there are plans to disrupt the Bandera Scenic Loop intersection with the building of a QT on that corner. I am here to say that I am vehemently opposed to that, as many of us in this community are. That corner is the start of a beautiful drive at the foothills of our beautiful hill country. A QT deserves absolutely no place on that corner. Our relatively pristine, quaint, and quiet community of Helotes will be destroyed if a monstrous gas convenience station is allowed to be built on that corner. The zoning of this corner was made commercial for some ridiculous reason. Growth and development in our community is a necessary evil, but this proposed QT could be built past El Chaparral, but definitely not on that corner. I understand that this has been kept hush-hush. We have utility people who have expressed to people in our community that they were told to keep it hush-hush as gas lines were being mapped out on that corner. And I believe it was kept hush-hush because people do not want to see the protests and the unrest that the proposed building of the Walmart on that same corner across the road when that happened. There are cyclists who have expressed to me that they are very concerned about the increased traffic congestion, increased dangers for that corner. And they have said there will be many more crosses there because of that corner, the proposed QT. Citizens, cyclists, as I said, for those of us who use Scenic Loop on a regular basis, are very concerned. We are mad. We are upset. We don't want to see a QT nor any other type of business like a QT there. An office building, perhaps, maybe, but not to use a huge QT. Think of the increased traffic congestions, which Megan and Vanessa brought up, the light pollution, the potential rise in crime related to this.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the conclusion of that section, and thank you for your comments. We're going to move ahead to item 4 tonight, which is discussion and action on the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission from January 4th, 2022. You all have had a chance to review these minutes. If there are corrections or edits, please draw those to our attention, or we can have a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ron.
may I make a motion to approve?
As submitted?
I'll second it.
As submitted, Alex. Thank you. So the motion is to approve the minutes as submitted of the regular meeting on January 4, 2022. All in favor, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, item number 5 this evening is discussion and action on a request by Jose Rolando Guajardo for approval of a wall sign pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapters 66, Section 51, that is signs, commercial signs, projecting wall and hanging or enter-on windows, subparagraph B, wall signs for a collective at 12415 Bandera Road, Suite 116 in Helotes. I would ask staff, is there anything additional beyond what we have in our packet that we need to know about for this item?
Yes.
And maybe you could advance to the image would be great. And we have the business owner here if we have questions, but I would open the floor to the commission for comment or for questions regarding this item, which is now projected.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, please.
I have a question about, and I don't know if staff or the business owner could answer, but just wanted to talk about the lighting real quickly. Just could somebody help share the part that talks about halo lit metal letters, what that involves, and just a little more mainstream definition of that. I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I'll turn it over to staff on this one. Or the business.
I'm the guy who built the sign, the halo lit.
Hey, hold on a second.
Okay,
You're with this item, right?
yes,
Come on up.
sure.
And if you would mind, just tell us your name and your business address, if not Helotes, and then please go ahead. Thank
Sure
you.
thing. Yes, my name is Derek Aguilar. I'm with Xmanage. We're the ones that facilitated getting the sign installed with Rolando. And the sign is halo lit, which does mean that the lighting comes from behind the letter. Now, if we want to reduce the amount of light that is behind the letter, we put it closer to the wall. At this particular point in time, it is a 1/2 inch away from the wall, which means that the amount of light that it actually throws out is less than what is coming out of those boxes right there. So if need be, I can provide a actual dimension on how far out it spreads. But as of right now, that is close to kind of layman's terms is what I can say with halo lit.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments or questions? If not, this would be an appropriate time for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the recommendation request by Jose Rolando Guajardo for approval of a wall sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinance, Chapter 66 signs, Section 6651, commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or on windows. Wall signs for elective located at 12415 Bandera Road, Suite 116 in Helotes.
Thank you, and it's a recommendation item, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second on the item?
Second.
Jason, so any further discussion of the motion, Mario, Jason?
It appears to,
It follows code, everything looks clean, and, it looks good.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so the motion is to recommend approval of the request by Jose Rolando Guajardo for approval of the wall sign pursuant to code 6651, that is signs, commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or enter-on windows, subparagraph B, wall signs for a collective at 12415 Bandera Road, Suite 116. All in favor of the motion, please signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, this motion is approved for a collective, and it will go to city council. When will this go to city council?
We'll try to get it on the 10th.
February 10th would be the final approval. Thank you for being here, and good luck with your business. All right, item 6 tonight is discussion and action on a request by QT South for approval of a conceptual design plan for Quick Trip at 14912 Scenic Loop Road, Helotes. And that would include site plan and building design review, exterior lighting, and signage. Yes,
The applicant has
Yes.
a small presentation.
yep. So I'd like to ask the applicant to come forward, afford them a few minutes to present on this item. If you would introduce yourself, put your business address on the record, we would appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairman, Commissioners, staff, and guests. My name is David Wanders. I'm a real estate project manager with Quick Trip. Our address is 742 Northwest Loop 410 in San Antonio. I am excited to be here today because I do want to present Quick Trip to the city of Helotes. I would assume most people have been to one, and I would like to give a quick background, a little bit of information to give a little bit more background to Quick Trip, and then I will also be able to discuss why we're here today. Just a little bit more about myself. I came here from Phoenix, Arizona, moved with my family.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but I would like to keep this as concise as possible.
Okay.
So
Yeah, let's go ahead and move to the
thank you. I appreciate
next
it.
one. Quick Trip has been around, and we've opened up our 800th store here in San Antonio recently. The purpose for Quick Trip is to provide opportunity for employees to grow and succeed. These are many facts that we're very proud of about Quick Trip, and I would appreciate time to talk about them, but I do understand wanting to get through it. So many of these items are available as well to see, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any about the items that Quick Trip can do for you. Store security is very paramount for us, and you'll see that here in the next quick slide. And that shows a lot of camera angles that we have that cover every square inch of the lot. We had a gas buddy that voted us best bathrooms in Texas, and we look forward to the challenge from Buc-ee's every day. This is food. I apologize for having it at this time of day, but we do serve different kinds of food that we are also very proud of. All right, so here's our site plan, and you know, I do want to speak a little bit to what we're looking at. Obviously, we are on that corner of Scenic Loop and Bandera Road. And you can see that essentially from the beginning that we had talked with staff about this and brought this forward, there was discussion about the conceptual review, conceptual design review, and what that entailed. And we did get to understanding that the signage that we would normally have in a situation like this, where along a major road, was not acceptable and was much higher and larger than what is allowed here. So what we had been doing was really trying to understand what we could work with the city or work together to say, hey, this is something that we feel is sufficient for our site, that still allows us to present our offer to the public while still being within the hill country look and hill country desire. So this one here shows essentially the overall signs, the exterior signs that would be located on the building. You can see there are two on the canopy, the gas canopy, one on each side. Those are 20 square feet on the ends. And then on the front of the building, you have the Quick Trip that states it right in the middle, plus two buttons on the side of that. And then also the freestanding sign, which is our monument sign, which is located near the corner, that would display gas prices. So a little bit about this sign. As we can see, the max height according to code was 8 feet. And what we are requesting is 13 foot and 11¼ inches. The bottom, based on conversations with the staff and working together with our design team, this shows a Sonoma stacked stone, which matches the building, which is something that I'll talk to on the next screen as well in just a second. But essentially that, you'll also see here in a bit that is, again, much smaller than what we would normally ask for along a major intersection, a major drive like Bandera. So these are just a few examples that we do have in different areas. The one on the left is about 25 feet tall. The one on the right is 35 feet tall. And yes, those are typically what's presented there. The main reason for any company, but especially gas stations, is to present, this is what we have to offer, which is what people will look as they go by. And we want to give them that time to be able to see the product and decide what they want to do, be able to pull to the side. The smaller it is, the more difficult it is to read. However, on the same side or on the other side, if it is too large or if it's very large, you know, that is a cost to Quick Trip as well. And so we're not just looking to get the largest, biggest sign possible. So what we came up with that design there on the previous slide was, we think that this is both reasonable for traffic, reasonable for the road, but also reasonable for Quick Trip to be able to advertise to customers what we have to offer at the minimal, with two gas prices where normally we would be at 4. So again, in those conversations, this is our Generation 3 store. It is a beautiful store that we are very proud of, and the past convenience stores of the shoebox, we believe are gone. And with this, we have essentially a I know they're all 3D, but essentially a design that really brings out the character. And what we were able to do with asking for the signage as well was bringing on the stacked stone to the store as well. So that's where that connects to with the monument sign, and with the store having that stacked stone instead of what's called ephes, which is it's a black stone look, which we still think is great, but we think this one does fit in with the character as well. For that was requested for the area. This is an example of one that we do have. This is in Spring Branch, and that one also has stacked stone. The color is darker on that one, but as you can see, this also shows the signage on the front and having that stacked stone capability as well in front. And again, proud of how that looks as well in person there. These are some examples of the side that I wanted to bring up. And again, in discussion with the staff, there's questions about also additional signage. We are not going to be requesting or bringing forth any signage along the side that's shown there. That's like a Christmas type look there. That would normally have sales displays, stuff like that. So that would not be on this store. And then the other signage on the side is interior inside of the entranceway. And you can see there that's also covered with stacked stone. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. I would suggest don't go far. I would at this point open the floor up to comments or questions for Mr. Wanders, correct?
Yes, sir.
Regarding the proposal and regarding this agenda item, and for staff as well. So let me just start by opening up.
Mr. Chair.
Mario, please.
Mr. Wanders, is that your name, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wanders, thank you, sir, for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for the presentation, sir. Mr. Wanders, is this store going to be open 24 hours a day?
Yes, it would be.
And Mr. Wanders, is this the one piece of land in Helotes that you guys have targeted, or are there options?
You know, when it comes to selecting locations, that's something that takes months and months to do, goes through many different levels. As to specific sites, there's many different factors that go into that. There may be other locations. I'm not aware of what they are at this time, based off of being able to put, a desired piece of property under contract. This is the location that I know of, correct?
My final question is, have you been working with staff for a long length of time, or was this a hurried type to meet a deadline? Because I noticed that there's multiple variances in this request that we're looking at tonight.
It has been a number of months, yes. When we were able to place the property under contract, the first thing that we do is we start looking into the area and then have a pre-development meeting with city staff. And so with that, over the past number of months, have been looking at what our options are. And really, in the end, I think what it comes down to is we saw that the overall allowance, really what we're asking for, even though I see on there it does mention multiple different items, what we're trying to do is show that actually the total amount of signage that we have as a total square footage is actually less than what would be allowed. We're not requesting an additional monument sign along Scenic Loop. We would only have one along Bandera, and the actual size of that sign is, in terms of square footage, is also lower than what is overall allowed. And then the signs on the front of the building are more in terms of square footage. But really, this was multiple conversations and multiple meetings of trying to understand what we could do to try to fit within that character. That's where the stacked stone, a much smaller sign than what we had originally proposed, come to them with, and having that design on there. That was really a combination of working with them for quite a while.
Mr. Wanders, one final question. I'm sorry, I want to take, this will be my last question. I'm familiar, and I'm sure most in the room might be familiar. There's a QT down the road on Bandera Road, right before the Helotes area. And then there's one even further down at Seneca and Bandera. Are those QTs, they look kind of similar. Is that the QT that's proposed to come to Helotes?
It's the same general shape. Those do not have the stacked stone on it, though. But
I noticed that they're very bright. They stand out. And that's my question tonight. Is that what we're doing here as well?
yes, this is the same Quick Trip as well. Yes.
Very bright, very prominent, can be seen it's very well lit.
We do, we do appreciate having a lit property that does provide safety at all times of the day. And we do fit within different codes in different areas that would allow that lighting. They're all full cut-off lights, so they do not shine upwards or off the property line as well.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. A question for staff just to clarify that this property, this proposal as a usage does not require council approval. It is within the current allowable use for the zone in which it is situated. Is that correct? Okay. And so our item tonight is focused exclusively on the design that has been presented to us, including the signage, the lighting, and so forth. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Pass to Ann. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, I have a quick question, Mr. Wanders. I think that a lot of people are concerned about it being what we in Helotes might call an eyesore, just because it's so commercial. And, I understand that you made some concessions by making it stack stone. I mean, that's not really unique to this one, because there's others that are like that. Are you willing, is this the final product here? Is this all the concessions you're willing to make as to making it more characteristic and more, country Helotes, not so much of an, well, I know I don't mean to offend you by saying eyesore, but not so commercial, like more fitting in with the Helotes character and nature that we like? I mean, can there be other concessions, or is this your final product for approval?
There may be. I do not have the ability to make that decision. Okay. There are certain, although I am the one presenting it, there are certainly many different layers when it comes to deciding if a site is feasible. My job as a real estate project manager is essentially that. Once it's placed on the property, I do everything I can to decide, find out if it's feasible to continue to build a store there, and then hand it off to construction. So part of that would be if there are more design changes, more concessions, because Quick Trip, yeah, we absolutely do believe that our people recognize this, and people do choose to come to us as they drive by, that because they recognize it as a Quick Trip. There are many businesses that have that recognizability factor, I guess. Mm-hmm. There will be a certain point where, the changes to the design could make it where it's not feasible to build there. But in that terms, I do not make that decision, but I'm happy to have those discussions with staff as well.
And what about all the concerns people are being vocal about, the pollution and everything coming from there? Do you feel like you've adequately covered that? Or should we have some concern, or is that a question for your engineers? Or
no, I mean, Quick Trip has been around for 60 plus years, and we do always, in there it says Quick Trip is here for employees to grow and succeed, but we also went by what our core values are, which is to do the right thing, be the best, focus long term. Those items, we don't succeed as a company if we're not focusing on also the safety of the streets, the safety of our customers, pollution as well. I understand that we're a gas station. There are very, very many regulations that are in place for that in terms of underground tank storage. Our underground systems are amazing in protection and also detection of if there were leaks. Those are very highly important, obviously, to us and anyone in the area. That very important.
But were there any, and sorry to interrupt, but were there any extra precautions taken considering that this location is more rural, and that there is there's a different type of land here than if you were on a city road where you have a lot of other commercial buildings around you. Was that noted by anybody that you know of, or were there any extra precautions taken that we can explain to people who are fearful of this? Or maybe you could look into that? Could you look into that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of extra precautions, when we go through both I think the access, again, the traffic, I know that's certainly brought up. A vast majority of people who come to our stores are passing by the site already. They don't tend to go miles out of their way to come to a Quick Trip. We'd like to think so, but in reality, most of them pass by and go in at that time. So in terms of that access, that's a big one, and that's where we go through, whether it's Tech Stop for Bandera, the city for Scenic Loop, as to what are the appropriate mitigation steps for traffic.
But I mean, in this area, we have a lot of wells, we have a little bit of a different, in that location, so that's what I was more concerned about. But maybe you can look into that.
Okay.
I'm telling you, we have wells and people have, animals and different concerns that you wouldn't normally have to confront on a commercial strip in the middle of a city. And I think that's a valid concern, and we need to know and be reassured that extra precautions are taken.
Understood. And we do have an entire environmental department who are the professionals in that department. We, no more than anyone, would want any sort of spill to happen or any sort of environmental issues to happen to a site as well. That's not something we would want. So we do also whatever the company can in order to protect that area. That's what we would do.
Thank you. Others with comments or questions? Go over here to Jason.
Several questions. So, first of all, for Mr. Wanders, and perhaps I have some questions for staff as well, or whoever can jump in. The first question is, to the right on these drawings, there's a quote-unquote surplus lot, which has an existing structure, or at least a concrete pad. Is that owned by you? What is the intention for that property?
So the only piece of property that we are under contract for is the corner that has the Quick Trip on it. The rest of it is still owned and would be owned by the current owner, which is Nooner Holdings.
Okay.
So in terms of what he would plan to do with those properties, I don't have an understanding of exactly what he would plan to do with those.
Okay, but you guys have a shared, it appears you're gonna have a shared access.
There'd be a shared access drive, correct, so that whatever that future decision is, it would be not an additional driveway as well.
Okay. Second question is somewhat directed at staff. The traffic question has come up. I know this is a little bit beyond the purview of this board, but has the peak hour trips been looked into? Obviously, the bigger concern, I think, is on the Scenic Loop side. That is a much slower street. That is a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bikers on there. What impact is that second driveway going to have on there? It appears to be in and out traffic access.
So currently we do have TIA that was already analyzed by our city engineer, and it's obviously been approved now. So at this point, I can't tell you the specifics, but there's no construction.
So you're saying the engineer has already completed the TI?
Yes.
Okay.
Third question about trees. There appears to be quite a number of trees that are going to be bulldozed. For this development, I can see them kind of in pink on one of the plans I'm looking at. There appears to be some mitigation along the street frontage, but it doesn't seem to be a lot. I don't know if that's fully developed at this point, but I would just kind of ask, what is the heritage tree impact? Right, do we understand that, or have a plan for that?
I can speak to that. So we had, again, part of our initial discussions was with city staff regarding trees and tree mitigation. And we have gone through both an initial landscaping plan, which does account for ordinance and mitigation, but also accounts for what we would be requesting is to put money into the tree mitigation fund, which was advised to us as well, that was an option out there. There was also the other option of physically planting trees somewhere else that's on, somewhere else in the city that might be needed. At this point, it seemed to be that money in the fund so that the city could decide where to go with those funds would be the best option. But again, it hasn't been an official plan submittal at this point. It's been discussions with the city.
Interject for 1 second. Has the arborist yet reviewed this?
He's currently reviewing it now.
So it's not been approved by the
Correct.
arborist, but that has to.
Correct, but the options have been discussed.
Thank you.
Yes, it's currently under review.
Okay. I mean, is there, I think one of the concerns, and rightly so, is that, kind of completely clear cutting, this amount of frontage, is not really in keeping, I think, with a lot of the character that we like to see. I mean, is there some room for perhaps some additional tree work? I mean, I know that, you've got a grading and tanks and everything else, and the saving is not going to be great with this kind of a project, but, speaking for myself, I'd like to see a little more effort put into that.
So what we don't have in here, or at least it's not here, the landscaping. Did we have the landscaping plan in there?
I see, well, there's a grading plan L100, which does seem to have some
there we go.
trees and planting on it. It was page
Right, and so
15 in my packet.
correct. And when we do look at landscaping, we have to, like you said, we do have to look at both grading, where items are located, where the tree is right now. We also did have an arborist as well go and look at the overall health of the tree, so that's also looked at it. And you're right, it is difficult with certain types of development that have this type of movement in it to be able to save a lot of current existing trees. We would like to be able to plant what we can in terms of mitigation and replacement, and also then be able to provide, the city with options for additional trees as well.
And then finally, under the sign, which seems to be the item that required the most variance work, in particular, the monument sign, I'm guessing from your comments that we're trying to be a little horse trading here in terms of forgoing a sign on the scenic loop versus getting a little more out of the one on Bandera Road, a little bit above and beyond what's allowed. Is that?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate, because that has certainly been a primary focus from the beginning of the discussions with staff about what we can get to, because there is a point where essentially a sign the size is not readable, not able to be seen as people are driving. I think that's one thing that whichever direction you're coming from, as you are on a busier street, being able to, people do look at gas prices. That is what they do. They look at a gas price and they're going to make a decision based on that. As seen from the other pictures, we would prefer, certainly in most situations, to have multiple gas prices, larger sign. It can be read from a longer ways away. In this case, we understand that those were not appropriate, and we felt that coming to this, not having a sign along scenic loop, which would be allowed, but just having along Bandera at that size, I think we felt is appropriate and not excessive.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just basically have one question. I don't know, the staff or yourself or whoever. It looks like lot 1 is where everything's being developed at. Is there a code of, as far as what percentage of a lot that's being developed can be impervious cover?
There is, and we're going through stormwater review right now through the plat, and it's being reviewed as of right now through our engineers.
So there is code as far as a certain percentage. Do you know what that certain percentage is?
I don't have that.
So I highly doubt it's about the 90% that it looks like this is asking for. But
This is an old. I think my memory is that the only impervious cover zoning code we have is in Old Town. It doesn't extend to the outside of Old Town as far as the impervious cover requirements.
What they'll look at is they'll look at if it affects stormwater.
Well, that's the difference. That's it, yeah.
That's how-
But the question
That's
was,
it.
is there a
Okay.
percentage that can be impervious cover? And the answer is not in that zoning.
Right, it's if it affects the stormwater.
That's only in Old Town?
Yes.
Okay.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a number of questions, and many of them, thanks for being later in the list, have already been addressed, but I'd like to kind of talk about a couple of them anyway. A number of the citizens expressed some of the concerns that I looked at when I first started this, and one was with the trees. So Commissioner Weidman asked the question about what was looking at this surplus lot. A lot of developments in the city have a tendency to buy a larger piece of property, cut down trees where they want to put the building, and then they reserve the areas for the trees on the neighboring area of the property that they also own. We've seen that happen in a number of locations. And so what you're telling me is essentially that's not going to happen here. That my concern, though, is because that's your answer, that lot number 2, the surplus lot, is not going to be utilized to save the necessary or requisite number of trees, is that someday the other owner is going to come back and they're going to come back and say, oh, well, now I'm selling the neighboring lot, and they're going to have the equal number of trees % cut from that lot too. I was hoping your answer would have been different, and that is that second portion would be dedicated for the open space and the tree preservation, rather than putting money in a city fund. And I understand what goes with that fund. It goes to help with other tree preservation, predominantly with oak wilt and things of that nature. If you look into actually the fund, that's where much of that money comes into, where it helps people with that. But to me, it still doesn't erase the fact that we're going to have a very large block of concrete and asphalt. I was hoping that the answer to that is there, so I'm a little bit disappointed. The question I have about drainage, as we look at the plot, I see that to the right of it, apparently, because I was looking for the detention pond on here because the question was brought up about water runoff. And I know that our engineer is probably looking at that in detail. And your engineers have most likely engineered this with that. But I also noticed that when I see that in the upper right-hand portion of the lot you're purchasing, it's going to be an underground detention pond. If I'm not mistaken, that pipe that goes up to the top and goes out to the back is probably going to be the release from that detention pond, right? So that would be on the neighboring property and therefore could possibly overflow into property that isn't yours, and also that is very adjacent to, I don't know what is on the other side of that to the top of the map.
So,
Is that the outflow for the detention?
that is the outflow. That is in excess of what the I think it's the 100-year storm event. Basically, there are requirements when it comes to drainage that says, okay, so you've removed pervious cover, and so now you're storing that amount here. Then at a point where it becomes to what it was essentially pre-development, then that would outflow. So essentially what's flowing out of there would not be in excess of what had happened before, because that's the direction that the water runs, is in that direction, and it heads back towards the creek.
So I'm familiar with the fact that there's two issues with water. One, of course, is water quantity, and the other is water quality. So the TCEQ is going to concern itself with the quality aspect of what is running off of your property. And this is really more addressing the water quantity to make sure that more water doesn't leave the property at the same rate that it was prior to the development. I get that. So I guess our engineer will have to look at that part. And as far as us looking at the design plan, I guess where it's on the property isn't really something that we have a say on that. But I wanted to ask that question because I thought that was odd that it would go off property to a neighboring area that you said that you're not acquiring. And I've been on between council and planning and zoning for over 20 years, and to my recollection, this has been zoned the same during that entire time. It probably when it was initially annexed back in, which was probably back in the 80s, I would think. So it's not, and it does comply with regard to that. I do want to say a couple other things with regard to the building. I think that you've done a really good job with the stacked stone. I think it is exactly what we would like in the city. The stacked stone fits very well, the coloring, the look, et cetera. With regard to the signage, I'm less concerned about the fact that you want 3 signs, given that one of them, or the 2 of them really are nothing but a square button. And then the other one in the middle is there on the front of the building in lieu of having them on the scenic loop side or facing the other lot, which may very well eventually be developed, et cetera. I am concerned and not in favor of granting really any of the variances associated with the monument sign. I don't believe that just saying instead of having one at each driveway, which is the typical establishment business, and just putting one up at the corner is that way. I drive up and down Highway 16 regularly, as do many of these folks here, and some who live past it, so they drive by every day. And I would think that with a canopy the size and the building that the size, you're not going to need a 14-foot sign for somebody to know that there's a gas station there. And so I'm of the opinion that it should fit within the 8-foot requirement. We're only talking a few feet. The large, very large QT at the top takes up so much of that, as does 3-foot when we only require a 2-foot base. So or an 18-inch base on the sign. I think that you could put a lot of your wording on there and still meet that compliant. I read your arguments in your presentation that I think are interesting, because while a higher sign, a more visible sign, one that you can see from a distance on a highway seems to make sense, except that we're not on 151 and 1604 where people have to see it 2 miles out in order to be able to take an exit in order to get to your store. Everybody who will pass by that will be within 100 feet of that intersection on either side of the direction. And, you know, while the speed limit might be 55 now, and I'm not predicting anything, but as the development of Helotes grows, I suspect that that's going to get slower rather than faster. And it's hard, you're hard pressed to go through that intersection and make the light. So it's not likely to have to be seen that far. And a couple more feet like that isn't going to make it seen the other side of El Chaparral, but what it will be is it will make it seen from the residences that are on the hill. It'll make it seen from the other areas who are not really trying to see the sign or the gas price. The other side of the road's not going to end up being a gas station. There's just not enough room. So you're not going to have somebody looking at 2 signs and trying to decide to turn left or turn right. So those are my thoughts as to why there's really no need to go with a higher monument sign than that is the case. I don't know what to say about the lighting, but I think that it's, I'm not sure what you can do about lighting at a gas station and make it appealing to an area that is immediately adjacent to residential neighborhoods. So those are my comments. Thank you, sir.
Do you have anything?
I'm good.
Okay. I just want to make a comment about the signs and about the site plan. I think Alex captured it well with the monument signage, and I think that an 8-foot sign or the code would be certainly reasonable and would not in any way detract from the business or its viability. Speaking more generally about the lighting in the site plan, you do, I presume, are aware that at least for a segment of the community, this will antagonize and very much disturb a segment. I don't mean to suggest everyone in its current scope. I'm thinking about the lighting, I'm thinking about the size of the building, which is not an unattractive building. Has the business considered that and the repercussions of that? Everybody wants there to be a good neighbor there, right? And then secondly, how the corporation's dealt with this in other locales, because I can't imagine this is the first time.
You're correct, it's not. And we do take that seriously, and we do want to be good neighbors, to be a neighbor first and be good neighbors. I think we have found in our time, in our history that, and I understand, I do understand that people do have concerns. I would hope that I can give them the time, they can give me the time to talk with them and show that beforehand and during and after that we can be a good part and welcome part of the community.
Okay, and one other sign question, just to verify this with staff on the wall signage. They proposed around, I think it was around 100, and they're permitted 92. With our allowance, we can easily, if we wanted to, as a commission, grant that without going through any special approval from council. Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point, unless there's another round of questions or comments.
I want to make a quick comment about the monument sign. you know, I did see your arguments. I would push back a little bit. I went on GIS for the city of San Antonio, and it appears that there's at least 800 feet of visibility coming from the north and at least 1,600 feet of visibility coming from the south. So I don't, you know, my knowledge of signs is not as good as others, but I think that anything, you know, around 1,000 feet, you need essentially a 30-inch tall letter to be visible at a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. And I don't think, you know, other than a QT, very little of this is going to be visible at that speed, at that distance. And, you know, it's hard to accept that we really need, again, kind of reiterating what some other people, it's hard to accept that we need a monument sign that big for that visibility. And like I said, we're, you know, we're at a traffic light. There is heavy traffic there at times. And I think that's, I'm open to, you know, forgoing some signage on Scenic Loop, you know, possibly in exchange for some credit here, but it's a little bit too far for me.
At this point, I would, and thank you, sir. I think we're good, at least for the moment. I'd like to invite someone who would care to put a motion out there for us to discuss. To be clear, the motion, the item has three parts: the site plan, the exterior lighting, and the signage, with variance requests attached only to the third part. And so if someone would care to.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to go out here. First, I would like to say thank you to the gentleman who was here tonight to present, but a bigger thank you to the community that was here tonight to speak, because I hear you loud and clear. I live out there too. I live in Los Reyes, so I'm speaking from the heart right now. But I'm going to say something. I know we're voting on signs, and I'm on this commission, and I appreciate that. It's an honor to be on this commission. I serve with some great people here, and I've lived in this city for more than a decade now. But I got to tell you, I'm just so, I'm just going to try to keep it to the point, but I am against this proposal. I know we're voting on signs, but.
So Mario, I'm sorry.
I'm going to put a motion out there right now, Mr. Chair.
Go for a motion, then you can tell us what you think about the motion.
I'll recommend a motion right now that we deny this item tonight. And I can tell you why in a moment, but I'll recommend a motion to deny the request by QT South for approval of a conceptual design plan for Quick Trip located at 14912 Scenic Loop Road, Helotes, more particularly described as property ID 242050, and including the following: number 1, site plan and building design review; number 2, exterior lighting; and number 3, signage. And the reason.
Okay, hold on, Mario. So now we need to see if we can get a second for the motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay, so now the motion, for discussion of the motion. Mario, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and forgive me for being a little long-winded, but I just want to say it real quickly. It's all been said here tonight. I don't need to repeat it, but to me, the last part of Helotes that's left from maybe 20 or 30 years ago is at the corner of Bandera and Scenic Loop. That's what it looked like 30 years ago and even further back. And to bring in a gas station into that area, the environment, the noise pollution from the lighting, and everything that was said, I don't need to repeat it, would really disrupt the aesthetics and the character of Helotes, and especially right across the street from Old Town. And then I think QT is a great business, and I would welcome them to be in our community. I just don't think that's the right spot. The other thing I want to say is I'm concerned about, I counted 5 variances, and I know they might be minor to some on this commission, but to me, that means, like, if you're going to build something that's controversial in that area, wouldn't you dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure that everything was addressed, to make sure we have a clean presentation for voting? So to me, that's an early sign of, if we're going to take shortcuts like that, then when that business is there, then when things start to get kind of crazy out there, they're not going to hear the community. They didn't take us seriously at the beginning, so why would they take us seriously when we're already in the game? So again, I don't want to use this mic as a somewhere to speak like this, but what I do want to say is thank you to QT for being here. I would like to see them in Helotes. I just don't think Bandera and Scenic Loop is the right area. And Old Town is a treasure. It's our jewel. And having a gas station across the street is like saying something negative to that area. We don't need it, and that's why I recommend a motion tonight to deny this request.
And do you have any discussion, comments on the motion?
I think Mario said it very well, and like, I agree with him that there's nothing against QT, but we are fighting a lot of, how can I say this? We know that things are growing and that our town is growing, but I think Helotes' character is just being knocked out of the ballpark. I mean, it's like, and it's not that we're against expansion and all of this, but that area, I agree with Mario, is very precious to a lot of people. And I do not think that there has been enough care about the environmental concerns and the wells and everything that's out there. I mean, people go out there and they copy their plan from their last QT. And I understand, because that's what you do. You have a model and you use it everywhere. And yeah, you change the stone a little and everything, but there are so many differences in that area that do not apply to other commercial locations that I don't see in here that care has been taken. And maybe you're thinking about doing it in the future, but I'm just not convinced. So I'm going to go with Mario's motion and second it there.
Is there other discussion about comments about the motion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yeah.
I want to just clarify if I could. So the motion is to recommend to council the disapproval of the three parts here. And why I want to clarify is because the usage of the property is not something that I know it's been a topic of conversation, but the use is allowed by zone and is not something that we're recommending approval or disapproval of. It's the actual site plan itself, the layout, the building, the lighting, and the signage that is the recommendation.
And I understand
want to
that.
clarify that so that we all know.
That is
what we're
correct. That
voting
is
for.
what the motion is.
I understand that, sir.
Do you have discussion of the motion any
Nothing.
further? Ron? Jeff?
I disagree with both commissioners.
Okay. So we're going to do this by roll call. If we can, I'm going to read the motion back. The motion right now is to recommend, I believe you said recommend, but to be clear, to recommend disapproval or denial of the request by QT South for the conceptual design plan for Quick Trip 14912 Scenic Loop Road, Helotes, including site plan and building design, exterior lighting, and signage. Go ahead and call the roll. And to be clear, if you vote for the motion, you are voting for disapproval or denial.
Jason Whiteman,
Yes.
Alex Blue,
Yes.
Mario Rios,
Yes.
Ann Caraway,
Yes.
Jeff Wade,
Yes.
Ron Haza, yes.
Okay, so that motion is approved to recommend disapproval. What happens next is that this item, please no demonstration. The item will go to council, which will make the final determination at likely the February 10th
We're gonna try to get it on the 10th.
meeting. And to be clear that the arborist, the engineer, the marshal, everyone will have, by that point, completed all necessary reviews, right? Okay. So for the folks who turned out, please be aware that the final determination is made by city council, which won't happen until February 10th, though that potentially could change, so watch for this information. Mr. Wanders, appreciate you being here and for your presentation, despite, I'm sure the outcome is not what you wanted, but I think you got a fair hearing, and I do hope that you will take into consideration the types of things you heard and let others know about it as well, and have a fruitful conversation. So we are going to move ahead with our agenda for tonight. I understand some of you probably don't want to stay any longer, so if you go out, if you could just be tiptoe out so we can carry on. And thank you all for being here. Our next item tonight,
Number 7.
yep, thank you. Oops, my pen is not working here. Number 7 tonight is discussion and action on a preliminary and final plat pursuant to Code of Ordinances, Chapter 78, subdivisions establishing the Brycewood Subdivision Unit 6, a 20.05 acre tract of land out of 92.088 acre tract of land out of the Musquiz Survey, number 80, Section 5, Abstract 487, County Block 4450, and being a portion of a 100-acre tract described in the deed recorded in volume 6591, page 258. We have everything I think we need on that one. Nothing further from staff, I presume. Are there comments or questions regarding that item? Whoever makes the motion has to read that.
Twice.
Yeah, I just had one question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman. So if I'm looking at this detail on page, my packet's page number 3, it appears that this development via Paloma Drive is connecting to an adjoining residential development. Is that, I believe that's a new feature to this, the various expansions we've seen to this?
There's a note 11, if you look at the top, we've actually asked them to bring a new plat when it goes to council. If you look at the top, the note 11 Paloma Drive will have a tie-in, being an emergency access easement only.
Okay,
There will be a gate, it will be a gate, and it will be just an emergency access, because they have to have some going out.
A second.
okay, is that the one into Beverly Hills? Okay, it's only going to be an emergency gate?
Correct.
Because it's hard for me to read this here. I had the same question.
So what we asked them to do, actually, at the end of that, to put a note 11, because it just states it on the top under note, so we actually asked them to add that to the flat to show where note 11 goes. So when it goes for final approval, they'll show where note 11 goes.
Does that need to be a condition part of this motion? Or is that,
You can
okay.
make it, but we already, we got the final.
We've already, they've submitted it. with the-
They have submitted it,
They
okay,
have- they
okay.
actually have it. It came in.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, and so that is going to be the only gate that's going into Beverly Hills? And it's going to be an emergency? And how are we defining emergency?
It's emergency access gate.
Okay.
So that's an actual definition where it's locked and it's fire that has access to the fire.
Okay.
That have access.
Just like at Hearthstone and,
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
Okay, that's good.
Did you have more, Jason?
No.
Ann, anything further?
No, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, how about a motion?
I'll do it. Okay, I make a motion to recommend approval on discussion of an action on a preliminary and final plat pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 78 subdivisions, establishing Brycewood Subdivision Unit 6, being a 20.050 acre tract of land out of a 92.088 acre tract out of the Muskie Survey Number 80, recorded in volume 6591, page 258 of the official public records of Bear County, Texas.
Well done. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion of the motion?
I have a question. I should have asked before, I'm sorry.
All right.
In here, I could be wrong again. Aren't our codes 10-foot setbacks on neighboring properties?
This one actually has a development agreement, so we have special setbacks on this property.
Anything further on the motion, which is to recommend approval of the preliminary and final plats pursuant to Code 78, subdivisions establishing by Brycewood Subdivision Unit 6, 20.05 acre tract out of 92.088 tract of the Muskie Survey, number 80, section 5, abstract 47, county block 4450, and being a portion of a 100-acre tract described and recorded in volume 6591, page 258, the deed records of Bear County. All in favor, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed, this motion is approved and will go to council presumably at their next meeting. Last item on our agenda tonight, or excuse me, the last action item on our agenda is discussion and action on a request by Marco Banda for approval of a wall sign pursuant to Code 66, Section 51, that is signs, commercial signs projecting wall and hanging or in or on windows, subparagraph B, wall signs for Rice and Spicy Thai Kitchen, 11590 Gallon Road, Suite 108. Is there a representative of the business here tonight? Okay, if we have any questions, which we may not. But let me open the floor up to comments or questions from staff. There's nothing further than what we have, correct? Okay, good deal. And there's the sign for you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question that's more generic, if I wish. To our city administrator, does this development not have a master sign plan?
No, it's in our PTJ.
Okay. And I was wondering why their signs just keep coming up one by one when normally a development like that has a master sign plan that our staff can just approve by routine. Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Jeff.
Recommend approval of request by approved electrical signs for approval of a wall sign pursuant to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 66, Section 6651, commercial signs located for Rice and Spicy Thai Kitchen located at 11590 Gulm Road, Suite 108.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion, Jeff or Ron? Anyone else? So the motion is to recommend approval of the request by Marco Banda for wall signage pursuant to code 6651, that's commercial signs, projecting wall and hanging or in or on windows, subparagraph B, wall signs for Rice and Spicy Thai Kitchen, 11590 Gulm Road, Suite 108, San Antonio. All in favor, signal aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is approved. Our last item for tonight is a report from staff. A brief report from staff, we hope, on revisions to Chapter 66 signs and 98 zoning of the code.
So we would, staff has been looking at revisions on the sign code just because we've had a lot of,
Variances?
yes, a lot of variances, a lot of different requests. So those are the things, especially with temporary banners, some sandwich boards, stuff like that. We also have like churches that come only on Sundays, so they'd like a temporary banner for that day. So there's just a lot of things that we'd like to present to you. We'd like to present it as a discussion item and a public hearing on those items in March. And then, you know, and also have your input of some things that y'all want to discuss and bring up. So we are also bringing this to council because we need council direction since they are the approval body. So we will be bringing this up to council in the future also. That's something that we'll be placing and talking to them about. But we also wanted y'all to know because that's something that y'all do recommendations for. And so we would like some input. So we're just asking y'all to start providing us some input and some direction also that we can present to council on that.
Are you talking about at our March meeting, March 1st, I guess, having a discussion item?
Well, it's actually going to be a public hearing.
Public
It
hearing?
will be a public
So are
hearing.
you all going to be presenting some suggested changes at that point?
Yes, we will, but we would like y'all's input. So if you could start emailing Michael with some of those items that we can present and put amendment recommendations for the March meeting.
And council is not yet on board with this?
Council has not yet, so this is still just going to be a discussion thing. And then we'll see at that time what council, if they give us final direction.
Yeah, I just don't want to work across purposes to council where we put in a lot of work and suggest X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no, we're not, you know, so I want to make sure they're on board before we do anything.
And so we will propose an agenda item.
Okay. And you have zoning on here as well?
Because Old Town is in zoning. Old Town signage is in zoning.
Okay, so it's actually a sign, it's all a sign.
It's all signs. The problem we have to list chapter 98 is because that's in zoning.
Got it.
You know, and we have to look at, we've given variances in monument sign heights, you know, in different things. And we've also had businesses ask about higher signage, and especially going down Bandera past, you know, in our ETJ or even just past near El Chaparral because they're saying people can't see their signage. So these are just different things that we've had requests from business owners themselves that have been within the city.
Mr. Chair, question. Yep. Are we going to have a combined public hearing and our regular
Meeting, yes.
planning and zoning?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are you going to do a PowerPoint presentation?
I can.
Because if you do, is it possible to get it prior to so we can look at it? Or do we see it for the first time when you present? I'm just.
No, you get it with the packet.
Perfect.
So when we post it.
Excellent.
Anything that comes with the packet, we put it all together.
Thank you.
Another thing we ran into is some of these businesses that aren't very wide, their square footage,
Exactly.
like the shopping center we just looked at, that was a major discussion there about the buildings are only 20 foot wide. So when you go and measure it, their sign what they're allowed to have doesn't fit.
Also, when the sign ordinance was written, signs were built differently. So they were all square,
Yeah.
and so the square footage was that way. Now they have channel letters, so the square footage is different. So it's the way you actually figure out the square footage. So, a lot of this was written before, when technology or the way signs were built differently than what they're built now. So it's just updating that.
Well, just because we had plywood signs with painted on it doesn't.
All right, so that's to look forward to in March. That's March 1, I believe, right?
I believe so.
First, yeah. All right, that brings us to the close of our agenda. Thank you all for your work tonight and discussion in an efficient and productive way. I would like to ask if, Ron, is there a motion to go out?
Mr. Chairman, may we make a motion to adjourn?
There's a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, signal aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we stand adjourned at 8:22.
Oh, that was pretty good.
Catch your light.
Oh. Wow.
All right.
There you go. That's good.
See,
Have a good week, guys.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.